Who resembles Arnold Schwarzenegger more, Logan Franklin or Wesley Vissers? Now, both of these classic physique competitors have drawn comparisons to Arnold Schwarzenegger, so I wanted to make a video to compare them actually to Arnold Schwarzenegger and see which one of them resembles Arnold Schwarzenegger more. Now, right off the bat, I would like to mention that yes, Wesley Vissers, he has a fairly blocky waist, and so does Arnold Schwarzenegger, or at least they are wide. And Logan Franklin is known for having a tinier waist, but still, guys, I would still say that Logan Franklin's waistline looks more like Arnold Schwarzenegger, because here's the thing that a lot of people do not mention. Wesley Vissers, he not only has a blocky waist, but it is very, very long. And you can see that proportions wise, Wesley Vissers, he has a fairly long torso and shorter legs, at least compared to Arnold Schwarzenegger and Logan Franklin. And when you look at the abs themselves, Wesley Vissers, he has a slight split in the abs. So I would say that overall, proportions wise and structure wise, Logan Franklin, he resembles Arnold a bit more. And obviously, they both have muscle bellies similar to Arnold, probably why they are being compared to Arnold. But let's get to some poses. In the front double bicep, we can see that they both have arms similar to Arnold Schwarzenegger. I would say that Logan Franklin's arms look a bit more like Arnold Schwarzenegger. Now that is hard to, I guess, explain why, but just looking at it, that is my personal opinion. And again, guys, we can notice that Mr. Wesley Vissers, he has that gnarly long torso, sort of reminiscent of Nathan Diasha. And also from the front, perhaps because of his long torso, his lats looks very highly inserted, and both Logan Franklin and Arnold Schwarzenegger do not have that issue. So even though a lot of people like to say that Arnold Schwarzenegger had a wide waist like Wesley Vissers, which Logan Franklin does not possess, I would still say that structure-wise, the outline that they carve, Logan Franklin and Arnold are more similar than Arnold and Wesley Vissers. But let's get through some more poses. In the front lat spread, we basically have the same issue here. Look at Wesley Vissers' lats from the front. They just look so highly inserted, which probably is not the case, as it doesn't look like that from the back, but it's probably because Wesley Vissers has that blocky and very, very long waistline, and he also has a very long torso compared to his legs at least. Both Arnold Schwarzenegger and Logan Franklin do not possess that feature. So again, guys, just looking at these three gentlemen, I would say that Logan Franklin, he looks more like Arnold than Wesley Vissers does. But let's move on to the side. And even from the side, it is a bit noticeable how long Wesley's torso is, but it's not as noticeable. And again, guys, all these three gentlemen have very similar muscle bellies. So from the side, I would say that both Logan Franklin and Wesley Vissers resemble Arnold quite a bit. But then again, guys, I would still say that Mr. Logan Franklin, he resembles Arnold a bit more due to the execution. Logan Franklin, in my opinion, a better pose than Wesley Vissers, and that will be made evident as we go through more poses. But also, when it comes to proportion, when it comes to the length of their legs and torso, Logan Franklin a bit more similar to Arnold, in my opinion at least. When it comes to the back double biceps, I would say that neither of them look a lot like Arnold in this pose, but I just wanted to showcase it either way because I feel like it's a very important pose. Obviously, Arnold never had shredded glutes like Logan Franklin or diced hamstring like Wesley Vissers, so neither of them look a lot like Arnold, and neither of them have a lower back as good as Arnold's, but other than the arms, they do not resemble Arnold in this pose at all. So let's get through the next pose. Now, this is the crab most muscular, and here I would give the edge to Wesley Vissers. I think that he looks a bit more like Arnold because they both look wide as heck in this pose, and for some reason, Logan Franklin, he looks a bit narrow in this pose. Now, I know that he's executing it in a slightly different way, but still, guys, compared to Arnold and Wesley, for some reason, he looks quite narrow. But when you look at the muscle bellies themselves, he looks a lot like Arnold. And for that matter, so does Wesley Vissers. But when it comes to the width, Wesley Vissers looks a bit more like Arnold, and his long ass waist is not evident in his pose. So in this pose, I would say that Wesley Vissers looks more like Arnold. When it comes to this Mantis pose, I think that Mr. Wesley Vissers is getting screwed a bit by the camera angle. But overall, I would say that they both look quite like Arnold in this pose. But even in this pose, it is sort of evident how the proportions when it comes to looking like Arnold is a bit off in Wesley Vissers, because even here you can see that his upper body is just way too long compared to his lower body when you compare it to Arnold Schwarzenegger, and that is not true for Mr. Logan Franklin, who has proportions, at least when it comes to that matter of fact, quite similar to the old Arnold Schwarzenegger. Now moving on to the twisting back double biceps. And this is where Wesley Vissers goes wrong. He needs to really work on this pose. Both Mr. Logan Franklin and Arnold Schwarzenegger hit this pose to perfection, and Wesley Vissers, in my opinion, he just sucks in this pose. He might be getting a bit screwed by the camera angle, but still, I don't know if it is just the way that sort of his muscles are, that they are not ideal for this pose, but I do not think so. I think that he can hit a good twisting back double bicep if he just works a bit more on this. But obviously here, Mr. Logan Franklin, who is a better poser, he resembles Arnold a lot more than Wesley Vissers. Moving on to the final comparison, or I guess the final shot. And I know that Mr. Logan Franklin is not hitting the same pose, but it is very similar. And Arnold also used to hit that pose. And if I included a picture of Arnold hitting that pose, they would also look very similar. So, again, guys, they both look like Arnold when it comes to the muscle bellies, and they look like Arnold quite a bit, especially from the side. But I would say that from the front, Logan Franklin, he looks a bit more like Arnold, especially due to Wesley Vissers' sort of weird looking waistline. So from the side, they both look like Arnold. From the front, I would say that Logan Franklin looks a bit more like Arnold. From the back, neither of them look like Arnold. But overall, who would I say is the modern day Arnold Schwarzenegger, if there was one? In my opinion, this man right here, Logan Franklin, he looks a lot more like Arnold than Wesley Vissers. And in my opinion, that is obviously evident from the front. From the side, both him and Wesley Vissers look a lot like Arnold. And their muscle bellies, they are also very similar to Arnold Schwarzenegger. They both have those full and peaky biceps. They both have good arms, and they both have quite amazing pecs. But overall, guys, the proportions that Wesley Vissers has, even though he has a wide waist like Arnold, he does not have the same waistline or a similar waistline to Arnold Schwarzenegger due to his weird looking long torso. So that is it, guys. This was just a fun comparison. Obviously, looking like Arnold is not the end all be all, and Arnold Schwarzenegger is not even an ideal in modern day classic physique. So take this comparison with a pinch of salt. It was just done for fun because both Logan Franklin and Wesley Vissers are often compared to Arnold. That was it, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I will see you guys later.